How are you? Welcome to the live stream today. It is day 17, I want to say. I'm pretty sure that's right. Let me just check. Yep, it is the 17th of October already. And today for my drawing, I've been sketching out Tetsuo from Akira. The prompt word was swollen, and I just couldn't help but think of his nasty arm that he just sort of grows with his psychic abilities. So anyway, yeah, just sort of that's my goal today. Let's see, Quantum Fire. That I believe you're new. Welcome. Spider Boy is here, and beep 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 beep. That's from Akira. Yes. Noah Inc. is there. I'm glad you can hear me. And Mycroft is there. All right. Well, that's a wonderful group to start with, and yeah, just gonna have a lot of fun today with all sorts of goofy details and stuff. There's a lot to experiment and play with when you've got just sort of fictional biomechanical goop that's springing out of this person's body. There's almost no wrong answers in a way, you know. The only thing is I just want to be sure that I block out what I decide to put in my foreground first and take it from there. Few more folks joining. Hello to Rosaku and Emmanuel E. The word today was swollen. Hello, Chrissy. No, Akira was not the word. The word was swollen. And that made me think of Tetsuo, a character from Akira. So we'll see how that goes. Just sort of blocking in this sort of flowing organic biotech mess. And then I'll do switch to a different brush, I think, for the area behind that. And this could definitely take a little while to really form. We'll see. So there are I could potentially get lost in the detail and either go quiet or really be focusing on what's in front of me. That's just a possibility. Let's see. J Muse is here, and Alpha Proto and Clay. Any reason why you're doing these earlier? Yeah, today's a day off, and yesterday was a day off. That's the reason. So I figured maybe a chance to reach some different folks. Mr. Yuck is here. Let's see. Oh, good. Spider Boy says he drew Deadpool. That's good. The word made me think of a pregnant woman. Yeah, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. I'm happy to see that your viewership is growing. Hey, me too. Let's see, Drawfiend says, this stream will get too swole to control. It almost already is. I definitely miss a lot of comments. Nintendo is back. Let's see, currently working on a He-Man versus Skeletor inking. Alright, that sounds fun. Hasman Caesar says, the word reminds me of the Death Guard. Fair. C. Kim, hello. Maxine Tanty. I've reinvigorated your love for comics. That's wonderful to hear. Comics are fantastic. There's so many types of stories you can tell and so many good ones out there. Have you been keeping up with the Inktober drawings? Yeah, you can see my live stream. I've been doing one every single day this month, so I'm keeping myself honest. Noah says that he likes the earlier streams because he's on the East Coast and the other ones are incredibly late. Yeah. I know. Hello to Faction Fusion, and yeah, so anyway. Let me bang away at some details for this piece, and then I'll keep checking in to see what kind of questions there are. Definitely like looking more for questions that like let me go off on a tangent telling a story than anything else. because I like to keep talking so that it's entertaining, but the fact is I have to keep looking at the artwork or I just won't be drawing, and then there's no real content. It's just me talking, and so it's tricky to sort of hit that mix, that perfect balance of drawing and entertaining everybody watching and trying to interact. But I'm sure you all understand that. Oh, Mycroft said did Rorschach. Yeah, that's a cool thing to draw. DJ Convoy says, love these ink streams. Your mic is super quiet. I know. Not much I can do about that right now. Sorry. I've got it boosted all the way to the max settings, so I just need to get a different microphone, which isn't the easiest. Yes, Belly, this is in fact Tetsuo. Tetsuo starts off, he seems to be kind of an okay normal guy, but we learn that he's kind of got a lot of mental issues, and then he also happens to have vast psychic powers. Probably not the best person to get those vast psychic powers. Actually haven't been able to watch Akira in quite a while. My copy is just something I haven't dug out of my sort of boxes when I moved out here over 4 years ago. I just haven't pulled out too many DVDs because so much these days is available to stream. And Akira seems to be one of the few things that's not like free to stream anywhere. So I've been thinking about it lately, and yeah. And so when the word for today, Swole, came up, I was like, oh man, I know what I want to draw. Something I've been thinking about. A guy that gets pretty swole, and not by hitting the gym. Raw, don't skip Psychic Day. Are there questions? Let's see, where can I go? Marcus Mattingly says, I did Blob. That makes a lot of sense. Totally get that. Am I going to do Ryuk from Death Note? You know, I haven't like thought ahead to what I'm doing each day, so there's definitely the possibility that I could. I do like that character. I've discussed Picard. Can I do a video on Crumb? Yeah, at some point I will do a video on Crumb. Do I like Crumb? Um, I respect parts of what he's done for alternative comics. I don't think everything he's done has aged well. And yeah, I think you have to keep sort of reevaluating art in the context of both when it was created and what the current environment is. And I don't think some of his stuff is especially sensitive to others. And that's just worth discussing. Like, you know, like how much of a problem is that, if at all? So I do have things to say. I will get to it at some point for sure. Miguel joins. Let's see. What else? Asman says that Domu, A Child's Dream, is the best Katsuhiro Otomo piece. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. What's my favorite X-Men movie? Mm, I guess Logan. I guess Logan, and after that maybe First Class, and then maybe X2, something like that. Out of your travels, do you have a country place to vacation? Out of your travels, do you have a? I don't own a place. Oh, a favorite. I see. I see. A follow up. Uh, Probably Japan. I'm really in love with Japan. Um, but I also would love to just keep visiting more places that I haven't discovered yet. There's so much of the world out there, and I don't want to like miss out on something that's maybe even better. But I do really love Japan. I've had some really wonderful trips there. Let's see. Mike L says, back in the instant messenger days, my pick was a gif of two stock figures yelling back and forth, Kaneda, Tetsuo! I never read Akira. I hear it's a lot more involved than the movie. Yeah, no question. Because like the each volume is like a thick phone book sized thing. Phone books are these books that the phone companies used to send to houses. It would have everybody's phone number in the area. It's something that we had before cell phones. And we also made this symbol to indicate a phone receiver, which you would pick up. Very dated reference. Anyway, there were these thick volumes of Akira, and there were like 20 of them? I forget exactly how many. It's a long, long story. And in fact, Kaneda, who is the main character of the film version, isn't necessarily as important in the manga. In fact, I think that there's one issue that he's not in at all. Um, it definitely just sort of bounces around and shows sort of the whole world. It focuses on lots of different characters. And anyway, yeah, it's definitely a bigger story, but while that can help put context on certain things and make certain things make a little more sense, and certainly give you more depth and passion for certain characters, it's worth noting that the movie was directed by the manga's creator, Katsuhiro Otomo. So it's very much his vision, which is impressive. There's not too many people that either get or take that opportunity. I think that Otomo is very much a perfectionist, but we're all, as readers and viewers, fortunate to have that. These streams had about 15 max. Now it's nearly double. Yeah, some of them are getting pretty big. Um, I do my best to try to acknowledge people, but if I don't, it really isn't anything personal, folks. It's purely because I have to look at the artwork and I might miss the occasional comment. So hopefully you do understand that. I'm glad that the channel's growing. It gives me plenty of opportunities to, you know, hear different viewpoints and just, you know, share my love of comics with more folks. Hopefully influence some non or casual readers to pick up some good stuff and become advocates and proponents of the medium, right? Love comic books. Am I all geared up for Smash Ultimate? Is that a video game? If so, I am not all geared up. Sorry. Otomo was in love with Mobius's work. Yeah, yeah, and I think that we all benefit from that. So let's see here. It's always tricky as a Western artist to interpret anime and manga characters because obviously the Japanese have some very specific, well, I guess you could call them tropes, but techniques as to how they illustrate people. And we don't use those same techniques, so it's like you have to make sort of judgment calls in certain areas as to like how you're going to interpret that and stay true to your style. At least that's something I think about. So I hope that this character is recognizable and yet it isn't like, you know, a direct copy of Otomo's work. That's not what I find very interesting. But it's an interesting challenge, and it is a fun challenge. And I'm sure that they feel the same sort of challenge when maybe they're tasked with illustrating somebody like Spider-Man or Batman, and you know, you use some of your techniques and some of the techniques of where it came from, and just try to find a happy balance. It's a challenge for sure. But it's just as much of a challenge to illustrate any character for the first time that another person created. You know, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy for other creators to initially draw Spider-Man when Steve Ditko was like, you know, the only one working on it. So. I'm not going to draw, you know, a no nose or a tiny nose the way a lot of manga illustrators are going to. When I approach Tetsuo, I'm going to still give him a nose, so I have to look at a lot of different images and see what kind of shape is implied when he's in profile, and play honest with that with the way I approach drawing a nose. And I'm not going to give him eyes that are necessarily any bigger than any other character that I draw, but I might leave certain lines open or enhance others just to make it fit in that kind of a style. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. Favorite Wolverine artist? When I was a kid, it was Frank Miller, just because of how raw he did him. But as I grew up, I really came to appreciate what Mark Silvestri did with Wolverine, and then like going back, like Dave Cockrum, like some of the stuff that he did with Wolverine, I sort of went in reverse back to like how he was originally drawn, and sort of found that's what I really liked about him. What other questions? I'm going to make some dinner. All right, see you, Michael. Thanks for dropping in. Hello, Rabid Chameleon. Thank you for subscribing to my show, Asmin. I appreciate that. Something about Inktober. I'm talking about how Jake Parker came up with the idea and he created the list of prompts. Favorite volume of Akira. Haven't read them all. I've only read a little bit of Akira. I would really love to get that 30th anniversary collection set so that I can read the whole thing. But yeah, obviously I can't kind of spend that kind of money right now. I don't have $100 lying around. Someday. Some of the details that I can still include on Tetsuo and still be honest with, you know, my style and not run into any challenges are things like the hair. I can easily sort of give him a bit of a receding hairline, but, you know, really wild, spiky hair, and that doesn't really seem to betray my typical approach or style. I can give him you know, pretty open young face. There's a bunch of things that I can focus on to make sure that my version of Tetsuo still hopefully looks like Tetsuo and not just a guy in Tetsuo's clothes. But it's always going to be up to the individual viewer as to like how accurately or incorrectly I did that. It is a challenge for sure. Have I read Habibi? I have, Maxine. Boy, that one was a tough read. That is some pretty depressing stuff, to be honest. And in fact, I can't really claim that it's my favorite of Craig Thompson's work. While I respect what he was going for and stuff, I just found it really a bummer. And it was like, it took me a longer time to read than a typical comic because I kept putting it down and needing to take a mental break. It was just so it was a real downer. I wish I was more into it because I loved Blankets. I like Goodbye Chunky Rice. I love Carnet de Voyage. So, you know, big fan of what Craig Thompson has accomplished and what kind of stories he tells. Love the goal of Habibi, love the artwork. The story I just find really depressing. It's just so bleak. So that's my quick 10-cent review, I guess, on that. What's your biggest breakthrough in your artistic development? What was? That is a challenging question, and I appreciate it, Richard. It's always hard to be like, you know, objective about yourself and reflect properly. I would say in my 20s, just learning that it was time to stop sort of copying what other artists did. I think that like I had just grown up sort of like always doodled, of course, and drew my own stuff, but I also sort of tried to copy the work of artists that I really liked in the hopes of sort of like learning their techniques and their approach. And that's not the worst thing to do when you're starting to draw, but I think it does sort of impede your progress and hamper you quite a bit at a certain point. And, you know, I probably hit my early 20s when I finally learned that it was time to stop doing that. And I think that, like, my artwork at least became a little looser and more honestly my own. That was a big challenge. I think it helped me with panel layout too and stuff like that. Darth Piet said, that scene haunted me the night that I watched it. Yeah. Hello, Hyper Invincible Artist. I'm glad that you like my videos. That's awesome. Spider-Boy says, I want you to work on a Batman comic. Your style is perfect for it. Well, who knows what the future would bring, but I've always sort of considered myself more of a writer than an artist. I just love drawing. I'm not sure how realistic it is that I would ever illustrate a mainstream superhero. I'd love to try to take on the challenge. I just, that's a very competitive field, and I don't know. I don't know if I've quite got like the style that would appeal to a mainstream audience, and I don't know if I'm fast enough also. But I would love the challenge. I think I could do something different. We'll see. I'd love the opportunity to write. That doesn't intimidate me at all. I've got tons of ideas. I can always write and edit my stuff pretty quickly. I mean, you could probably get a small sense of that from the fact that I produce a weekly show, and I have to write that every week. I like writing. I like writing a lot. I like story structure. I like finding a character arc. I like finding a reason for a story to exist. Like this is the only way that a character maybe would change. And what makes a person change? What makes them reevaluate things? Find those interesting stories to analyze and approach. Congrats? Almost got that word out. Congrats to Rainy Shack, who turned in his or her Atom model today. That's awesome. Richard Hawker says that his big breakthrough was drawing hands. I feel like I'm still working on that, I feel like that's part of the journey, and I've still got a ways to go there. Other questions. Let's see. Travel back in time to the 90s. It seemed like they were giving penciling and inking jobs to anyone. Yeah. How many pages could you draw without getting burnt out? I don't think I'd really ever get burned out per se. I just think that a page a day is definitely a challenging pace for me. I can probably just about do it, but it probably takes me a little more than the 8 hours that it might take a better artist, or a more experienced artist anyway. I don't get burned out drawing. You can get physically tired because it takes a certain amount of time, but I've never gotten tired of drawing, like mentally exhausted. Like I don't want to do it anymore. I mean, I want to keep doing it. Good question. Let's see. Poop Toucher 66 is here. Cool. I just want to say that I love your videos so much, especially some of the recent ones. You just come across as incredibly sincere, not just in your love for comics. Well, I appreciate that. It's important to me to be honest with any sort of analysis or reviews, but I also find honesty really, really good when it comes to comedy. I find that honesty and is lends itself very well to humor. If people can tell like a brutally honest story that's potentially embarrassing, I find that like really refreshingly funny. I tend to like story-based comedy a little more entertaining than just sort of like observational. Um, I mean, obviously, there's always an observation included, but I don't know. I just like the stories that certain comedians tell, and I really like it when they're being honest. I find that funny and brave. But if you're going to sort of add any critique about something, you really have to be honest. Otherwise, the audience will see through it, I think. So I love the overall medium of comics. I think that much probably is obvious just by the fact that I produce content on a regular basis. But I also so I love the medium. I love obviously certain stories, certain artists, etc. But when it comes to like every review, there is stuff that I also dislike, and it's really important for me to every once in a while be sure that I'm including some of that, so that you can take me seriously, so that I'm not just blindly saying this is good and this is good and this is good. Like that would get old. Anyway, enough about me. Some of the guys in Wall Street Journal do like 60 to 80 pages a month. Some of those guys. Maybe WSJ doesn't mean Wall Street Journal. Not quite sure what you're saying there, Jojo. WD asks, Leatherface versus Michael Myers. Definitely going to give it to Michael Myers. Michael is methodical and strong, and Leatherface is kind of dumb and crazy. So, like, I don't think it would be too hard for Michael Myers to actually sneak up on Leatherface and got him. I love what if type scenarios, like matchups and stuff. So that was fun. Thanks. Marcus Mattingly says, speed is an issue for me as well. Main problem is it takes a couple bad drawings to get a good one. Well, I think it's important to do warm-ups whenever you're ready to draw. Just sort of do some sketching that's fun. Let yourself make some mistakes. And after you feel that you've like sort of gotten the kinks out for the day, you can start drawing what you want to draw that day, if that makes sense. But I think warming up is definitely a key thing to do. I also think properly preparing by like, maybe doing some thumbnails or some loose sketching that you could lightbox just to make sure you get it right. Anyway, those are just a couple ideas. Can you tell us a story from your hero days? Sure. Let me think for a second. I'll go with like sort of a non-fight one because fights are a dime a dozen. Um, so for those who don't know, when I moved out here to Seattle, I didn't know many people. One of the few people I knew was Phoenix Jones, and I decided to start dressing up as a superhero and patrolling the streets at night, and you know, well, it was silly. I don't know what I was thinking, but that said, there were occasional times where we were able to help, and so this one time I was patrolling around with this guy who went by the name Midnight Jack. It was just the two of us, I believe, and we're walking down some sort of back streets around, I want to say the Capitol Hill area. Yeah, it was Capitol Hill. And all of a sudden, I hear car tires screech like just up ahead, as well as some big thunks. Like, and a body hitting like metal makes a unique, disturbing sound. Basically, a taxi cab had just blown through a four-way stop and hit three pedestrians, one of them quite bad. And she was on the ground, and I had to give her some emergency first aid to stop the bleeding and keep her conscious and awake. She was breathing, and I told Jack to go stand behind the taxi cab so that he couldn't back up because all these people were still in front, including me. But I thought this guy was ready to bolt, and he was, because I had Jack stand behind and make the 911 call for the ambulance for emergency services, and the guy in the cab did not have a passenger, and he did try to get in and just say like, sorry, it looks like everything's all right, and he was like starting to back up and was like, excuse me, and I was like, don't move, Jack, and he didn't, and we waited for the police to get there, and took off my mask and gave my statement, and I had to give a written statement, and had to testify in court as to what happened. So that was kind of a crazy night where I was just glad that I was able to help someone. So yeah, there were some weird times. Anyway. Hello from the UK. Let's see, Jake. That's cool. Speaking of comedy, who are your favorite comedians? For me on screen, it's Sacha Baron Cohen, and for stand-up, it's Dave Chappelle. That's Milos. Welcome. Let me see. My favorites. I do like Dave Chappelle. I've seen him in person. I love Patton Oswalt. I like David Cross a lot. There's so many. I love Kumail Nanjiani. He always cracks me up. Who are some other comedians that I love? Paul F. Tompkins. I was talking about story-based comedy. Paul F. Tompkins is fantastic with that. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many. But there's a few. There's a few. Did you wear a suit? Did I wear a suit in court? I didn't have to go to court. I just had to fill out this letter. Yeah, I just had to fill out a letter, basically, and talk to someone on the phone. I didn't have to appear in court. I just was able to give my testimony that way. It might not have gone to court. It might have been something like arbitration or that. I'm really not sure. But no, I didn't have to wear my suit. And I don't think I'd have wanted to. Might have felt a little silly. Like I say, I'm not convinced that it was the best idea I've ever had. But I do sometimes think about like maybe making a comic book about my time, like a non-fiction comic book, and I would talk about like the few times that we were breaking up fights, or the times like where I had to administer basic like CPR or staunch the bleeding, or things like that, help people that were lost. There were all sorts of things. There was a time we chased down someone that we saw like hit another car and then like go on the run, and was like dragging a bumper behind them the whole time. I was not driving, and that like basically was a high-speed car chase, and we followed the lady to her apartment where the police, we had also called to come, and she pulled a knife on me, but she didn't like really swing it. She just tried to she ran into her apartment and like locked the door. But yeah. I mean, she left her car with the bumper from the other car hanging off the end, so it wasn't like it was hard to get a hold of her. WD keeps asking, is Edward Scissorhands a horror character? And I would say no. I would say no. That it was that Edward Scissorhands is horror adjacent. He looks like a horror character, but that's completely subverted. That's my opinion. Because there's no like real horror scenes of like somebody getting stalked or attacked or anything like that. That's not what it's about. Jake is from Northampton, England. Awesome. Awesome. What am I missing? Brian A. asks if I've seen the movie Super with Rainn Wilson. I did. Phoenix Jones has a small cameo in that, by the way, when like Rainn Wilson's character first comes out. He's just like a guy on the street. Like he's not in his superhero costume. He's just a guy in the street. And he's like, ooh, something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but he was in that movie. Alright, let me see here. What else am I going to do? I'm going to draw some t-shirt. Everybody loves a little t-shirt action, right? Other questions. What was the cop like when he saw you in a superhero outfit? At that point, we were pretty well known. We actually knew a lot of the cops. They were not surprised. They were used to the fact that we patrolled in costume. I don't think they loved it, but I never dealt with any that were like mad about it because we did things very by the book. Like we were very familiar with the law and what we could and couldn't do. You know, we couldn't like physically detain a person. Like I had Jack stand behind a car and not move, but we wouldn't like physically put hands on someone and say like, you have to stay here. Like we weren't allowed to do that, and we didn't. We'd never initiate a fight, but if someone punched us, you know, we'd punch back. Yeah, silly times. I was thinking if you wanted to do an episode of an indie artist, have you ever thought of doing John Jennings or David Brame? No, I don't know them, I'm afraid. I'll have to look them up later. Sorry, J. Andrew World. I guess I don't know everybody. Or maybe I do and I forgot their names. That's actually a possibility. I'm pretty bad with names. See ya, Marcus Mattingly. Let's see. Machik says, what was your preparation for this superhero stuff? Martial arts, medical, or law courses? Primarily martial arts, yeah. Primarily. I'd studied like Krav Maga for, I don't know, a few years. I forget exactly. I guess 3 years? 3 years of Krav Maga. And at that point in time, I'd also been like going to the gym for like 2 hours a day. I would like do the insanity workout during my lunch break, and then I would use a personal trainer for like weights and conditioning afterwards. So I know it's weird to like sort of look at me now. I've let myself sort of get doughy and stuff, but like there was this time in my life where yeah, I took my martial arts and working out pretty seriously. So for some reason, I thought that that would translate to me being able to help people in a way that somehow you can't as a normal person. And really, all you have to do is just be in the right place at the right time and be willing to do something. It's hard to explain. Uh, like I said, someday I'll probably make a comic book about it. I think I'd just like to find uh, an artist for it because I don't think I want to draw it like hyper realistic. I think like it's realistic and kind of dark enough, so I'd want to like tone that down, balance it out with some fairly light art, not exactly a complete cartoon, like but just something sort of more open. Okay, I'll think of an example. Have you guys ever read Powers with like Michael Avon Oeming's art? You know how that's sort of like open and cartoony, but it's a very serious, like realistic crime story. I think something along those lines might help balance out like sort of the darkness of the stories that I'm telling because I'm dealing with some very disturbed individuals and some violence and stuff, and I just wouldn't want it to like I wouldn't want it to just look cool and glamorous because it was honestly like I consider it like what I was doing not that cool or glamorous. It was kind of probably dumb. Did I help people? Yeah, I think I did, but I don't think I needed to be in a superhero outfit to do it. That's what I think I eventually learned. But I would go into more detail. Let's see. Gerzhigorj is listening in silence. Okay, good. Um, Hello, Shirley. Sitting at the gas pumps at Costco. Yep, we've all been there. Um, what's today's prompt? Today's prompt is swollen. Have I ever done a citizen's arrest? Yeah. Yep. But, whoa. Sorry, my mic fell over. My mic sounds nice. Let's see, we'll get that position there. All right. Anyway, enough silly stories about my past. Now for silly stories about my future. I've entered clown school. It's my biggest dream. No. Hello, TARDIS Rider. That's very kind of you to say nice things. Thank you. Yeah, this isn't coming out too badly. I think a really good colorist could probably really add a lot to this arm. I'm just trying to basically not screw it up with my inks. When I draw with the intent of having somebody else potentially ink it, I draw really tight pencils. For this, I draw pretty loose, and then I might even just like light box it so that there's less pencil on the page for myself when I'm inking. It's a very different approach. Hello, Quinn London. Let's see. Nice to see you. Cosmos says, if you look closely, you'll find Chris on ESPN documentary on real life superheroes. That's true. That's true. I am in a ESPN documentary about them. I'm on camera talking. I'm in the background doing stuff. There's actually several student documentaries about it out there too. It's not exactly like hidden or secret, but it's just not something I talk about a lot. But if I'm talking about it now on the live stream, I guess it's kind of getting out there. Just not a lot to say until I decide to sit down and tell the actual stories in hopefully comic book form one day. So that's something I'd love to do. But like I say, I just don't think I'm quite the right artist for it. So I'd really love to collaborate with an artist whose style I think fits the story right, and that's the trick, you know, finding a talented artist that you trust and is available and is willing to take on that assignment with you. But it could happen someday. I've got a friend just texting me like, have you heard what they did to Dick Grayson? Yeah, I have. It's out there, man. I won't go into full details here since that could constitute spoilers, but it's some pretty nutty stuff. It's the kind of thing that would make some comics fans like run screaming from their hobby. They're like, what? They did what to him? Let's see. Last year we get Chris to this big reveal when I was sure I seen him somewhere there in the real life superhero world. Yeah. Did I enjoy any of the DCEU movies? Yeah, I would. I kind of liked. I kind of liked Wonder Woman. I thought Wonder Woman was decent. Trying to think. I think that's about it, to be honest. But Shazam looks kind of interesting. So, who knows? Maybe that will be fun. Do you ever practice art techniques, perspective, anatomy, proportion, etc.? Definitely, definitely. One of my favorite things to do personally is go to live drawing sessions. You know, whenever there's like a model, I really like going to the occasional doctor sketches, if you've heard of those. That's where, like, you know, a burlesque dancer will like sit in timed poses, and it's usually only something like $5 or $10 to get in. And like I say, they'll start with, like, you know, 30-second poses, 1-minute poses, 2-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, 20. So it sort of builds, and sometimes they'll have prizes. It's usually at a bar, and you get like a drink, at least one. I think that those are really fun. I think that those are a great opportunity for drawing from life. And sometimes I'll just sort of be in the mood. I'll go to like the park or go to the zoo, and I like to draw from life there just to sort of keep my skills up. A lot of times if I go hiking, I'll bring a sketchbook with me and just sort of try to draw the trees and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely I try to work on my skills every once in a while and not just take things for granted. Um, always trying to improve. The thing I'm sort of focused on for these live streams is primarily getting better at inking and my overall speed. That's my goals with the live streams. I think it's helping somewhat. I think it's helping somewhat. Whoa, thank you. Let's see. XYZ Rob Zombie joins and gave a super chat. So let's see what it says. It's very calming watching you draw. With all the crap happening in the world, it's nice to just stop and enjoy something simple. That's so nice to hear. Thank you so much. Stuff like that really does make this all worth it. The kind words and the money. It very, very, very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. I find stuff like this pretty calming too. My fiance is really into like the occasional like ASMR, people doing like art, maybe even nail art and stuff. But like like sort of just talking calmly and quietly and just sort of letting people relax and veg out. Thank you so much. Could you do an episode about the Thor run with Len Wein and Walt Simonson? Well, I did one on Walt Simonson's run, and I've done a Len Wein episode. So there's so many other amazing, creators out there that I'm probably not going to be able to get back to them anytime too soon. I'm always happy to talk about both. I think that they've both done some amazing work. I'm especially a big fan of Walt Simonson, but I probably wouldn't be doing an episode on either of them anytime soon. Just being honest. Yeah, my cat's doing very well. Thank you, XYZ Rob Zombie. She's doing very well. Is your fiance as much into comics as you are? No, not very very casual interest in comics, but Chrissy is a painter and she likes art, so she's always respected and enjoyed like just sort of being comics adjacent. She has done things like 24-hour comic book day and made her own comic there. She goes with me like to some of the bigger comic cons and finds fun stuff to look at, like costumes and art supplies. And she'll read some things here and there, but no, not nearly as into it as what I am. It's definitely my interest, and she's more into paintings and all sorts of art. Really, I shouldn't limit it, but she is a painter, so she definitely has her favorite artists that are in galleries and stuff. Has there been a Plastic Man comic tropes? No, not yet. Closest would be I did an episode on sort of like knockoff characters, and I talked briefly about Jack Cole in that episode, the creator of Plastic Man. But that's about it so far. Someday. How do you feel about the more contemporary artists and the shift in visual styles to a sleeker look? Specifically, artists like Oliver Copiel, Sarah Pichelli, Jorge Molina, etc. I think it's great. Chrissy says she likes watching me read comics. Thank you. I'm a fan in general, especially of Sarah Pichelli. She's something amazing. I think she's really fiercely talented. Trying to think of like other. I'm just not reading monthly comics enough to bang out a list of names off the top of my head. There definitely was a time where I could look at any comic book that was coming out that week, and without looking at the credits, I could open to the middle and say, this is this artist, this is that artist, etc. So, I might know more than I think, but I'm bad at names, so like nothing's coming to me right now. Sean Gordon Murphy, I think, is you'd still consider like a fairly modern artist, I think, and I really like his work. I'm a big fan of him. Um, he just did that Batman White Knight comic, and I thought that was pretty special. Anybody doing anything for like Halloween? Anybody got like a Halloween party that like a friend is hosting or anything? I love costumes and stuff like that. So like if you have a cool costume for Halloween, let me know what you've got. Like I love hearing about unique, interesting costumes. Milos also loves Sean Gordon Murphy. Top 5 movies for Halloween. Well, because it's Halloween specifically, I'll definitely say the original Halloween and also Trick or Treat. And then just horror in general that I might enjoy. Let me try to think of like, I love horror, so it's like I get scared by Jaws and The Shining, and then I'll just throw in a crappy one for fun. I'll throw in Friday the 13th Part 4. So there we go. There's my on a whim list, and it could probably vary quite a bit next year or any other day that you ask me. All right. Now I'm trying to decide whether I want to color this or add some like warm grays or just call it like I don't know. I'm having a hard time deciding. Mm-mm. That pinky flesh explosion would look dope with the red cape. Yeah. Warm grays, says XYZ Rob Zombie. Well, XYZ Rob Zombie did give a super chat, so that gives him a big vote today. All right, let me let me erase a little bit of the pencil in a second, and I'll see what I can do with some grays to sort of give it a little bit of depth, a little bit of character. All right. Yeah. That'll do. Whoa! C. Kim gave $3.99 and says color. Eep. Well, now I've got a super chat specifically voting for something. I've established a dangerous precedent here. Let me just say, either way, I probably am not going to be able to stream too much longer. By the way, thank you for that super chat, C. Kim. That's super appreciated. You do not have to do anything like that. That is really generous, but thank you. I'll just say thank you. Thank you. But I do still have a bunch that I need to get done today, including wrapping up the next Comic Tropes episode. pretty excited for it. I had too many ideas for horror this month. I couldn't get to them all. I was like, you know what? I've got too many ideas, not enough time. So there'll be more next year. I think the Halloween episode I've had the absolute most fun on was, I think it was last year, and I reviewed like Tales from the Crypt, or at least EC Comics horror. Might not have stuck with just Tales from the Crypt because there's lots of others. But I think it was Tales from the Crypt, and just doing like the drinks and making that whole set with the dry ice fog and stuff. That was a lot of work, but a lot of fun. But I don't think it's like one of my most popular episodes. It's probably like too disjointed. Like people wanted it to be just about the comics. Probably didn't want the drinks and the background and stuff. And I understand, but for me that was fun, so it was worth it. And back then, like I didn't have nearly as many views, so like I honestly didn't feel bad at all for just doing episodes that entertained me first and foremost. I put a little more thought into what others might want these days. A little. I still have to be interested in myself or there'll be no passion, you know? It was a fun video. I liked it. Thanks, Sheldon. That's really nice of you. The Craven's Last Hunt episode was really incredible. I also loved the one on the history of comics distribution, just because it was such a unique topic for a video. The super chat does help, CKim. It helps a lot. Hello, Smirch Tatter. Let's see. By the way, I guess I haven't shown off my t-shirt. I just realized. But pretty proud of this one. Kill your heroes, be gay, do crime. Spider-Man. I like it quite a bit personally. Let's see. ECEM Hyundai says, if you ever did a Comic Tropes episode on the Flash's Rogues Gallery specifically, Captain Cold, I would be a very happy man. You know, I could definitely see myself doing a video like that, talking about which superheroes have the best Rogues Gallery, maybe, and arguing the case for like, you know, overall, like, sort of depth and accomplishments, something along those lines. I could see myself doing something like that someday. I don't think I have the time to do the color, Kim. I hope you understand. If I did that, it would be a much bigger commitment, and I just need to work on the next episode of the show. So I'll just do a little bit of gray to give it some depth. We'll see what that does. This is really helping me like figure out like where to do shadow. And it's kind of fun. Might need to invest in getting myself like a whole bunch of gray markers. I don't know. Because I have a few here, but I think that there are like 12 grays, and I have like 6. Let's see what folks are asking in the chat room. Whoa, see Kim, another super chat? I was watching the Rambo Christmas, hilarious. I was in tears and I wasn't even high. Thank you. I know that isn't about comics, but I do personally feel that that's one of the funniest episodes I've ever made. I feel like I had fun on that one. I just had fun. Um, there is a Rambo comic out there that I would really like to review. In the Philippines, they made a Rambo comic, and that's specifically. I've been looking for that thing for almost the entire time I've been doing this show. Have yet to locate a copy. Should be out there somewhere. I've even called Filipino comic book stores here and there just to say like, hey, could you check your inventory? Haven't found it yet, but somebody has to have them. There were several issues of it, so I feel like somebody out there has to have the Filipino Rambo comic book. I do have Filipino friends that could translate it for me. I'd really love to find that. I think that would be a funny episode. Because I don't think it's legally licensed or anything like that. I think they just were like, yeah, we're just going to do it. J. Andrew World would like to see an episode on Carmine Infantino. Yep. Great artist. Some questionable decisions as an editor, but definitely did a lot for DC. So certainly warrants an episode someday, no question. What other questions do I have in here? Let's see. This is like the third stream I have archived. I need to catch up. Brian A. says, I have some friends in Manila. Well, hey, Brian, if you want to ask them to take a look, like if they go to comic book stores or anything, for the Rambo Pocket Comics, it was published in the 80s. There were several of them. I would love just one of those back issues. Someday I'll find one. I also need to do an episode in general about the Filipino invasion, it's sort of called, where just a bunch of Filipino artists made their way into comics and really made some amazing changes for the better in terms of quality of art. So that would be a fun episode to tackle someday. I have no shortage of ideas for episodes. Only thing is, like, everybody sort of wants one, and I can't give them all right away. I just only have so much time. Oh, and I've also been getting a lot of like mail and email and messages like of people asking me to review their comic book, and I'm sorry, folks. Like, I have to work first of all. Like, most people that have like a full-time job don't really have time to do a lot else. But then on top of that, I'm doing comic tropes and doing these live streams. I'm generating a lot of content. I'm at least trying. I do not have time to review comic books, and people are like are offended when I tell them. I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have time. They're like, but I sent it in the link. Like, you can't just read it? And it's like, yeah, I can read it, but if I'm going to give my opinion, that's going to take some time. And I don't know. I mean, I'd love to be as helpful as possible, but that's not what my show is. I'm not saying at the end of every episode, send me your stuff to review so that I can give you pointers. Like, I don't have the time. I guess I'm sounding a little angry and irritated, and it's like, it's a good problem to have, obviously, because it represents that the channel is growing, and that is success. And I'm not trying to like be angry and mean to fans or at least viewers. Maybe I shouldn't call them fans. I don't know. But I'm just being realistic. I just don't have the time for this. Obviously, like most of the people that have put that out probably aren't watching this stream, so I guess I'm probably just sort of shouting to myself, but I wish I could help, but it's not realistic, at least right now, so I just can't do it. Have you heard of Japanese Spider-Man? Are you talking about the TV show? Because I've definitely watched that. If you're talking about something else, like a comic book, then not really. But if you're talking about the 70s TV show, I watched that. The thing's awesome. Yeah, wow. Milo says there's a lot of Croatian artists that came into the U.S. comics, kind of like Filipinos. Oh, cool. Well, give me an example of a couple of them. So where should we send our portfolios? Everybody's a wise guy. Send them to Comic Historian. Let's see, some new people have jumped in. Let's see, Toffee and Sladana and Lala. Let's see, charge for the service of reviewing other people's comics. C. Kim says, talk about your illustration work. Sure, I can do that. Let's see, I wouldn't say that I've done a ton. I usually only do about like one thing a year. And most of it was self-published for the longest time. Just drawing like stories in anthologies and stuff with my friends, things like that, or maybe submitting pinups to, various Image comics and stuff. Things like that have been published. In terms of, let's say, sort of stuff that you could easily find in a bookstore, I've done some educational comics. I've got work in Colonial Comics Volume 1 and 2, and then I've got a story in a book called Trickster, and that was written by actual Native Americans that were each like members of various tribes telling their tribe's version of a trickster story, whether that was an animal or a spirit or a god, etc. And I was very proud of the work I did in that, and that one was even nominated for an Eisner, so that was pretty cool. And it won a bunch of different like sort of other awards. And basically, the educational comics that I've done have like stayed in print and have gotten like a lot of awards. So that's nice to sort of be involved in. Obviously, I'm probably a little more passionate about, sci-fi and horror and superheroes. So I would like to sort of write some more stuff there. I don't know about illustrating it, but yeah. So I've done a few things. I'm proud of them, and then after that, it's really just doing this kind of stuff, like doing live streams these days. Very, very rarely I might take on like a commission or something, but that's more on like for somebody that I know that really wants something. I'll be like, yeah, I guess I could do that. Let's see, Mr. Who says, what is Inktober? It's basically just drawing every day. Foof says, Chris, thoughts on digital versus cell animation? Do I have any big... I don't know if I've got any big thoughts on that. Might want to ask somebody more like Harry Partridge that does animation on his channel. Like, he's got a more informed opinion. I think I personally tend to enjoy, hand-drawn cell animation more often. But there have been some really fantastic digitally animated films, so I don't really have a strong preference. It's more just like about overall execution, because there's also plenty of examples of bad work in both techniques. So hard to say. Let's see what I got here. Thoughts on Eric Larson's Savage Dragon? I love Savage Dragon, but that said, I haven't. I've fallen behind. I haven't read it for like a year or so, but I like it. I like that there's a creator out there that's basically just doing something that entertains him so much, and he's like very passionate about it, and I love that. I love that he's doing what he wants to do on his own terms. Because trust me, like Eric Larson could definitely get paid a hell of a lot more at this point if he decided to just do, you know, work on Superman or Spider-Man again, you know, any of these things. Like, you know, work for DC or Marvel. He could probably get that work in a heartbeat. But he's doing what he like is passionate about, and it's his own creation, and I kind of just love that and admire it. So I look forward someday to doing an episode about Eric Larson for sure. Let's see, Toffer says, I'd like to see an animated Akira sequel. I don't think that the creator really has much interest in doing a sequel. I don't know what it would, you know, what could it even be about? He kind of told the whole story. I would love to see more work by Katsuhiro Otomo because it's beautiful. I just don't know, like, what we'd see by him that would, like, I don't know what we'd do for a sequel to Akira that would be satisfying. I feel like certain things, like, they've told their story, and that's that. But you never know. You never, ever know. At least I don't. Alright, let's go back to some other grays. What do I have here? 3. Perfect. Connor Wood says, happy birthday to... Oh, okay, that's between some other people. Lala is doing the safety dance. Oh, Goran Parlov. I love that artist. I didn't realize he was Croatian, but I probably should have guessed from his name. He's fantastic, man. Yeah, that's a great artist. Awesome. And Justice says, Tetsuo! Love seeing you use Copic sketch markers. They're expensive, but worth it. Oh, and let's see. Nuzzy Lloyd is here. Hello. Tigger's here. What's the topic for tomorrow? What is the topic for tomorrow? I don't think I know off the top of my head. What is the topic for tomorrow? It might be scorched, but I might be off a day. I'll check in a moment, because that is a good question. I usually try to brainstorm a little with all of you right at the end of the stream. Just brainstorm a little. And it doesn't necessarily lock me in, but it gives me a small idea of like where I might go. Bottle? Tomorrow is Bottle? Bottle. Bottle City of Candor. I'm drawing Shane MacGowan, my favorite alcoholic. Okay. I don't know Shane MacGowan. Favorite Disney movie? Favorite Miyazaki movie? Oh, cool. Let's see. Favorite Disney movie? I'll limit it to animated because I just sort of assume that that's the question since you're also saying Miyazaki. But even then, it's I got to think for a minute. There's a lot to choose from there. Favorite Disney movie? Might be Beauty and the Beast. I really like that one. I'm also not including like Pixar or anything like that. I'm really just trying to stick with like classic Disney animated just to like limit it a little more. Because otherwise it's just really broad. Yeah, we'll say Beauty and the Beast. And then for Miyazaki, what's my favorite Miyazaki film? We should do a tropes about Walt Disney's comics. I probably will, Magic, because there was definitely a point at which they were the most popular comics out there, actually for quite a long time. So that probably is a good idea for a topic at some point. I feel like there's a Miyazaki film that is my favorite, but like the name isn't popping into my head. Oh, Spirited Away. Spirited Away. Oh, Shane MacGowan was the front man for the Pogues. Gotcha. Right on. I dropped the mic again. Feels like I've been doing that more and more. Well, folks, I am just about ready to wrap it up. Hamburger. Just wanted to add a little bit of energy there. Gotta love those speed lines. Yeah. Have you seen 5 centimeters a second? I have not, Tigger. Not sure what that is. Fave Dawn Bluth film. Not sure I've got one, but we'll just go with An American Tail. I know I saw that one as a kid, and at least as a kid I liked it. Haven't felt the need to go back. Good drawing. Doesn't that mean you're supposed to walk out of the room? Yeah, I dropped the mic, so I was supposed to go to the room. So there's like a little closer look at everything. That was fun, folks. I had a good time. Always awesome chatting with everybody out there. I don't think I've got anything else I really feel the need to add. So just sort of, yeah. Hopefully I made it sort of bio, weird, mechanical, etc. Hopefully. But it's always fun chatting with everybody out there. And tomorrow is Bottle. That's definitely a challenge. I'm not positive off the top of my head what says bottle to me, but maybe it will be a literal bottle. Maybe it will be somebody that uses a bottle. We'll figure it out. I had a good time, everybody. Sorry if I missed your specific question or anything like that. Definitely never trying to ignore anyone. Just trying to balance, like, looking up, seeing what's in front of me, and keep drawing and keep talking. It's a challenge. I very much appreciate everybody that came in here. I appreciate the super chats, and thank you so much for the questions. We'll see you tomorrow. I want you to keep reading comics. Bye!